What if legendary Pokemon had regional variants? This officially became a thing with the Galarian legendary birds in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and since then, I've explored what that would be like for more legendaries in a few videos already, and today it is time to continue that series and see what regional variants could be like for even more legendary Pokemon. If you think these variants are sweet, I'll show you something sweet. The awesome sponsor who helped make them happen, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. These are subscription boxes that bring treats that actually come from Japan right to your doorstep every month. If you want the modern experience, try out Tokyo Treat. This month, its theme is Mount Fuji Snack Venture, and it's got a ton of awesome stuff, like these freaking peach-flavored Kit Kats, which pretty much speak for themselves because they're peach-flavored frickin' Kit Kats. Sakura Co. has got you covered though if you want the more traditional Japanese experience. Their theme this month is Wonders of Saitama, and they've got lots of yummy stuff like these pear-flavored gummies, which were especially delicious. And they even come with a piece of authentic Japanese tableware each month too, and this time came with some legit chopsticks, which is really cool. So if you want to get a taste of some authentic, actual Japanese treats, pick yourself up a box with the link in the description below. And not only does this directly support the channel, so it's very much appreciated, but by using code HOOPS at checkout, you'll also get $5 off of your first box as well. So be sure to check that out with the link below, and a big thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. for supporting the channel. So the legendary Pokemon we are going to cover today are some big ones, because it is none other than the creation trio of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. These three are obviously major legendaries, so the idea of them with a regional variant is a lot of fun, but they're also creator deities, which means that the normal regional variant concept doesn't really apply to them quite as well either. They probably will never get regional variants for real because of this, but we're gonna imagine what they could be like anyway, because it's obviously a whole lot of fun as I said, and they can still look really cool. Also, the art of the designs you are about to see were drawn by my good friend Oscar Belmonte, who you can check out with the links in the description below, and I recommend you do because he does great stuff. With that said though, let's go ahead and get into it. I am going to start with Giratina because this one is really fun in my opinion, so here is what a regional variant Giratina could look like. Now, like I said, the creation trio are not really going to adapt to their environment, quote-unquote, the way that other variants do, which is what ultimately causes their physical change. So for these regional variants, I've taken a bit of a different approach and based them on what they looked like when their environment was different in a different sort of way. This is the form that Giratina took when the universe had just been created and was still brand new, and had to grow and evolve itself and had yet to even be shaped by these Pokemon to begin with. That is the general theme for the forms that you'll see in this video, and it actually starts with Giratina since I had the idea for its regional form first. I've had a theory for a while now that Giratina gained its ghost typing as a result of being banished to the distortion world, and without getting too far into it, it just makes a lot of sense to me. The distortion world could absolutely do that sort of a thing to a Pokemon based on what we've seen of it, and I don't think Arceus would create a Pokemon that's just dead as a ghost type right from the get-go. So TLDR, I think that living in the distortion world is what gave it that type and that form, which actually kind of makes it a regional variant itself when you think about it. With that said though, this regional variant of Giratina that I have created is what Giratina looked like before it had been banished, when it was a more heavenly, godlike Pokemon just like Dialga and Palkia. This is why I have based it on its origin form as well, especially because Giratina's regular form is called its altered form, which supports the idea even more that it was changed into that appearance and typing by the Distortion World. And since that's where the ghost type probably came from, this variant of Giratina is a normal dragon type instead. Admittedly, a light type would probably be better here if Pokemon had that sort of thing, but normal also fits pretty well considering that Arceus, the actual god and most holy Pokemon of all, is also normal type, and since regular Giratina also represents antimatter and the anti-world that is the Distortion World, this Giratina would be more representative of the normal world, which would make its typing pretty symbolic of its overall role. Not to mention, it would also be immune to ghost-type attacks this way as well, which is also pretty symbolic when comparing it to the regular Giratina. Giratina is also pretty iconically known for being based around the idea of the devil, and how this is represented in its design, with it having 6 legs, 6 spikes on its wings, and 6 spikes around its neck, alluding to the number 666. Well, this is contrasted in this regional variant of Giratina, with its neck and head spikes turning into halos, and it having 7 of them, as well as 7 spikes on its body, with 7 being a number that is associated with God instead. To further illustrate that much like the devil that Giratina is based on, it was also once a holier, more godlike Pokemon too. And representing that big contrast is the thing that I really wanted to show off in this design, and I think that ultimately it turned out pretty cool. We've got 2 more members of the creation trio to cover though, so let's go ahead and get into them now, starting with Dialga. This is what I imagine a regional variant of Dialga could look like, and going along with the beginning of the universe theme, this Dialga is based around the dark void of nothingness that existed before the universe began, and before time started, which causes it to swap its steel type for a dark type, and become Dark Dragon. Since it is now a dark type as well, we decided to bring in another inspiration that you might have noticed, and that is none other than Primal Dialga. This fan-favorite form of Dialga appeared in the Mystery Dungeon games and is exclusive to those titles, and despite fans' pleas for it to come to the main series as well, that has yet to happen. However, since Primal Dialga is known as Dark Dialga in Japanese, essentially bringing it over to the main series with a Dark Dragon regional variant Dialga seemed like the perfect opportunity. There are still some differences, however, because I didn't want this to literally just be Primal Dialga, and still wanted it to be its own thing, but yes, it is effectively bringing Primal Dialga over to the main series by making it a regional variant, which I think would be a great way to go about doing it, because it makes for a really nice reference, but it doesn't really have to mess with any lore as a result of including it, especially after Dialga got an origin form in Legends Arceus that didn't really incorporate anything from Primal Dialga at all. Speaking of that origin form though, I decided to base this Dialga and the upcoming Palkia that we're about to look at on their regular forms as opposed to their origin forms like I did with Giratina, since at the end of the day it is their standard form, which just like all other Pokemon would be the form that would get the regional variant. The Giratina form was a special exception I decided to make since it just worked so well with Giratina's lore. However, I'm sure that these regional variants would be able to transform into their origin forms as well in just the same way that the standard forms do, which would also be really cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at that Palkia though, and without further ado, this is what a regional variant Palkia could look like. Now, sadly, Palkia doesn't have a cool extra form to pull from like Dialga does, or a cool backstory to pull from like Giratina does. In fact, it sort of feels like the forgotten member of the group in that sense, but we still tried to make it look as cool as possible anyway, and I think we were able to pull that off. Going along with the early universe theme for these three that I've mentioned throughout the video, this form of Palkia becomes an Ice Dragon type. This ice type is meant to represent the cold, deep recesses of space, and also go along with Palkia's space theme itself, since water, Palkia's original typing, expands once it becomes ice. It also has some vague similarities to its origin form as well, particularly in its head crest and the armor-like plating around its face that is seen on origin form Palkia as well. I've also decided to go ahead and give all three of these variants some new signature abilities as well, since the original three all just have pressure as their normal abilities, which is kinda boring. For Palkia, I have come up with an ability called Spatial Expanse, which would expand Palkia's area of the battlefield and allow it to avoid the effects of entry hazards and other field moves. This might be kinda busted, but Palkia is basically a god, so busted is fitting in this case. For Dialga, I've come up with an ability called Flow of Time, which would speed up the time, or turn-based moves, that your opponent uses. So for example, if your opponent used Sunny Day, that weather would be over twice as fast, or if they froze you, you would thaw out twice as quick. For Giratina, it's an interesting case since I wanted the ability to reflect its lore and how, while it is a good Pokemon now in this form, it still has that darkness inside it that ultimately causes it to be banished. Therefore, the ability I am giving it is called Celestial Chaos, which ups the power of any of its Ghost-type moves by 50%. So, while appearing like a celestial being in this form, this should show Giratina's tendency for violence and darkness and destruction and allude to its eventual banishment and ghost typing, which I think would be really cool. What do you think of these regional variants though, and which ones are your favorite? Let me know in the comments below, and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more if you're new, because it really helps out. If you enjoy my content, you can also check out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify, as well as other music streaming services, which greatly supports the channel right back here as well, and videos just like this, and it's super appreciated. With that said, I'll be back very soon with another video, and until then, as always, thank you all so much for watching this one. I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.